Good evening, Rabbi. We were speaking about the laws of Nitlat Yadayim. So the Bet Yosef in Kufrun Het brings a safek of the Rokeach. The Rokeach writes, we know by the laws of Tumah, it only applies to foods that are at least the size of Kabeitzah, 52 grams. So the question is, if the person has to wash the hands Nitlat Yadayim in order to remind Kohanim not to make their Trumat Tameh, to make their hands pure, so the size of food that contracts Tumah is Kabeitzah, is the egg's worth. So maybe you should only be obligated to wash your hands in that time if you're going to eat a piece of bread size of an egg's worth. If anything less than this, so maybe you shouldn't have to wash. Maybe not. Maybe it's kazait. Which one is it? So the Rokeach has a safek. Therefore, he says you should say the bracha when you should eat a kabeitzah. If you're eating less than kabeitzah, you should wash without a bracha. And that's what Shulchan Aruch writes in Kufrun Het. There's an opinion that says only when you eat 52 grams of bread you wash with a bracha. But if it's less than that, if it's a kazayit, at least you'll wash without a bracha. What if a person is not going to eat even a kazayit? He's just going to taste a piece of bread and that's it. So the Shulchan Aruch says, there's an opinion that says there's no obligation to do Nitlat Yadayim at all. Because the smallest amount that the Torah talks about is kazayit matzah or kazayit of bread. If you're not eating kazayit, so there's no mitzvah washing hands. That's not considered a meal. So therefore, you don't have to wash your hands at all. But even though some debate on this, Yakut Yosef says like this as well, that if it's less than kazayit, you don't have to wash. You still have to say amotzi. You don't have to wash at all. But if it's going to be more than kazayit, less than kabeitzah, you wash without a bracha. There's also a debate in the Rishonim about, this is the Gemara Sechet Brachot says, Samuch le'ntilah bracha. The Gemara says, a very vague statement. It says, be next to the blessing, next to the washing is the blessing. You have to do the blessing right away. Which washing is this talking about? The Rosh and the Tur both understand this is talking about the Nitlat Yadayim. Right after you do Nitlat Yadayim, you have to do bracha of amotzi. So you can't talk in between Nitlat Yadayim to eating bread. The Rambam, he argues, he says no, this is talking about Ma'amar Hanim. If you do Ma'amar Hanim, right away you have to say Birkat HaMazon. So therefore, it's argument. Kuf Samech Vav, Maran brings both opinions, and therefore it's better always not to talk after Nitlat Yadayim before you do amotzi. If a person spoke, he doesn't do Nitlat Yadayim again. Definitely he doesn't do it again. But in order to fulfill all opinions, better not to speak. There's Achronim who discuss, what about if a person wants to hum? He's sitting at the table and the wives didn't come yet. No. So a person wants to make noises after he did Amotzi, after he did Nitlat Yadayim. Some Achronim say no, it's considered speaking. So you should even avoid that. Maybe you can go and not talk. That way you're tapping with your hand, so you won't be talking. But it's humming, and so some people like to sing a nigun. They only want to sing while they're waiting for the bread. Also, better to avoid. It's a mahluk in their harim. Some say it's considered speaking. And finally, when a person is going to do after he does the hamotzi, a person has to try to do the hamotzi as soon as possible. The Ramah brings Kuf Samech Vav. He says that the person shouldn't wait for the time it takes to walk 22 amot, which is around maybe 30 seconds. But a person, a lot of times, Shudash Shit in Shul, we do the Nitlat Yadayim, they didn't bring the bread yet. They're still bringing the bread from the kitchen. So you're sitting there waiting, Nitlat Yadayim you did, but Hamotzi you're not doing. So it's not right, the Ramah says, it's not right to make a hefsek between Nitlat Yadayim to the Hamotzi. So therefore you should always check that you have bread and then go wash. If you don't have bread yet, don't wash, because then who knows how long you're going to sit there and wait till they bring the bread. So therefore wait till they bring the bread, then go wash, then go sit, then make Hamotzi. There's a nice story. What? So that's not in your control. It's not in your control. You're right. When in the case where you're the Baal Bait, always check you have bread before you do Amotzi, before you do Nitlat Yadayim. Or Sudash Shishit, they bring the table, they bring the food late. Wait till they bring the food, then go wash. If Baal Bait tells you to go wash, you go wash, and you wait on the table. What can you do? So there's a nice story, they say it from the name of the Arizal, where the person came to the Arizal, he says, I have to do Teshuvah. I did this sin, and that sin, and that sin. He did horrible sins. So the rabbi said, you have to get the mitat srefa. You ready to get the death penalty of pouring hot lead down your throat? He says, Kibalti, Rabbi, I'm going to die. Kiddush Hashem. All my sins will be cleansed. He says, yes. So he goes and he says, I'm ready. He blindfold him. He starts boiling lead. And he says, you ready? You ready? Do vidui. He does confession. He says, you ready to die in Kiddush Hashem? He says, I'm ready. He puts it in his mouth and he tastes honey. He tastes honey. He says, Rabbi, what are you doing? I thought you were going to give me the death of Srefa. It's going to be kapara for me. He says, Hashem values more your teshuvah and the suffering of changing your ways. Living every day in Kiddush Hashem is better than dying one time in Kiddush Hashem. that we shall all make teshuvah, and this shall be our kapara. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen. Amen. Rabbi